Hey, review crewers, I'm Thomas,
And I'm Truman.
and today we're reviewing The Wild Robot.
Coming up next. So the Wild Robot takes place in kind of a futuristic version of Earth. A robot crashes down from a freighter and lands on this kind of forested island area in the middle of nowhere. And the robot emerges, and then there's all these animals and kind of wildlife and plants around her, obviously very unfamiliar to her because she's not programmed to deal with this kind of thing. So she kind of roams around and has to find her purpose. And that's kind of really what the movie's about at the end of the day. Thomas, what do you think about this movie?
You know, based off the synopsis alone, it doesn't sound like it's going to be this fantastic, unbelievable journey, but it is. I walked in this theater expecting it to be a good movie. It's a DreamWorks film, so I always have high hopes for that. But I never really expected it to change my life. But I walked out of this theater in tears, Truman, because this movie was emotional. It was just touching. It was beautiful all around. You know, the story of Roz coming to this island and being this big scary monster to all these wild animals. It's a story on like loneliness and finding a family, and I am a sucker for finding families. I mean, she finds a friend in Fink the fox, and the inciting incident of the movie is when she accidentally crashes into a goose nest and cracks all the eggs, kills the mother goose. But there is one egg that's saved, and the egg hatches. There's a baby gosling in there. And it imprints on the robot, and that's the inciting moment, and it's about learning how to love. It's about learning what is love, and again, it's just a beautiful film. What do you think of the story?
Well, as I've told many people, I actually had read the book that the movie is based upon before watching the movie, so I kind of knew going in. I told my friends, I was like, "This is going to be an emotional ride for you guys," and I could tell they didn't really believe me, but it was. It is an emotional movie. It is a deeply kind of it makes you feel for every character. There's all these animals running around. By the end of it, I was like, "No!" Like
Yeah.
every time any of those animals were put in even in like a little bit of danger.
When Roz taught the goose how to fly, the goose's name is Brightbill, by the way. When Roz teaches him how to fly, and he finally flies away for the winter migration, that was the first time I cried in this movie, and it was not the last either.
It was amazing what they made you feel like, and they have the kind of swelling music, and it's like, and
the music was phenomenal.
And the whole up to that point, the whole movie is about like this goose trying to take flight, and when it finally happens, you watch it happen in front of you. You feel like you watched this goose grow up in front of you.
And I really thought the movie would end, because I lose all track of time when I'm in a movie theater.
Yeah, see,
so
I
I really
also
thought the movie would end then. But that was just like, I don't know, the second act.
Yeah.
And then you get into this where Roz is all alone, and she finally realizes what love is. And she kind of shuts down, and she saves all the animals from a very harsh winter.
Yeah.
And Brightbill, he comes back the next summer looking for Roz, and it's kind of like they just miss each other, but they both really want to see each other and just tell each other how they feel, because there's an incident in the movie in which there's a bit of tension between the two. But moving forward from the story, I think the next biggest thing we need to talk about is the animation of this movie. And Truman, when I say this movie is beautifully animated, it is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous movie.
I mean, I love going back to the 2D animation style. I'm very glad that DreamWorks has gone on this track record of using 2D, like with Puss in Boots' Last Wish, and now with The Wild Robot. What do you really?
Well, there's a moment in the movie where the robot Roz, she touches a tree, and all these butterflies erupt behind her, and it's like this giant explosion of color. And I was just sitting there in the theater, like, I could not believe what was going on. I was like, this is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
I think my favorite part of this animation is during the third act, in which there's a big forest fire going on the island, and it's very, very dark and gloomy, but the fire is bright pink, and it's a great creative choice.
Yeah.
It just looked really, really great with the animation style of 2 dimensions, and the robot and the goose, and it just all looked beautiful.
Yeah, even the part, it's good animation when even the part, there's a part set in like there's this location where they go to this factory. Even that looked gorgeous to me. Like, and it was like, I feel like you're supposed to feel like that's like a little less like the nature's really the more beautiful part of this. But everything looked beautiful. Even like the kind of more droll kind of.
Even the mundane things.
Even the mundane thing. Everything looked beautiful in this movie.
Which I guess is another thing that you have to learn in this movie, that you have to love everything
Everything's
about
beautiful.
it. You have to love the good and the bad, which Roz and Brightbill, they kind of do learn to love despite imperfections and flaws.
Yes.
But moving forward from the animation, let's talk about this cast.
Oh.
I was shocked to
I was
see
also
who was
shocked.
on the cast.
I knew Lupita Nyong'o was
I did
playing
too,
the,
but that's where my
the
knowledge
robot.
stops.
And then in the credits it goes Lupita Nyong'o the robot, and then Pedro Pascal, Fig the Fox. I went, I was like, I think we all
The entire
gasped.
theater gasped.
Yeah.
And then Kit Connor as Bright Bill. That was another big shock to everyone. I heard you actually gasp a little bit louder.
No, I
for
went,
that.
Kit Connor.
And those are really the core three characters of this movie.
It's true.
There isn't really anyone else that's like super impactful to the story. But another character is a bear, and I forget his name, so I'm very sorry to the bear. But he's voiced by Mark Hamill,
That
and not
was
a single
crazy.
person knew about
No
this
one knew
until
that.
it
No one
showed
could
up.
have possibly guessed that. Catherine O'Hara as the opossum mom, who
opossum
I
mother.
loved. I loved that character. That was a great little.
I did. I thought everyone did a very good job in this movie. I think Lupita Nyong'o, she killed it. She absolutely crushed this role.
It was like she like really kind of put so much emotion into like this emotionless machine that was really.
And I'm against big movie blockbuster stars, taking up these voice acting roles because they usually just deliver their own voice and you just know it's them. Like Chris Pratt as Mario, like it's not a great performance, but despite that, I think Pedro Pascal actually did a pretty solid performance as Fink the Fox. I mean, it didn't wow me, but he did pretty good enough to make me realize that wasn't him. So for that, you get an A+.
Right. You know what I love about this movie? Is I love how it's gonna sound weird. I love how ever present the concept of death is. Like death happens just on screen, and they make nothing of it. There's a point where a crab gets boiled alive on screen, and they make nothing of it. They make nothing of that happening. Or there's like all this opossum mom and her babies, and the mom's like, some of you are gonna die, and it's just a fact of life in this movie. And I think it like makes it more powerful that like life is really fragile and like fleeting.
I took it as like a little bit of a joke.
Yeah.
But one could absolutely see it that way. And with Roz leaking some of her, fluid that lets her operate when she was saving the animals in the middle of the movie, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, like this robot is sacrificing everything that she absolutely has to save others.
Yeah.
And it's powerful to see that someone who's not supposed to feel things is sacrificing tooth and nail to try to save others. Which the main moral of this movie is that you can learn to live with each other and you can learn to love one another if you really have to. But with the story, the animation, the voice acting, and some of these morals aside, Truman, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the performance of this movie?
Well, given it is a wild robot. The movie's called The Wild Robot. She's in nature a lot. I'll have to give it a nature 9. Nature's 9.
Nature's
is what I'll
9.
give it.
I'm gonna give this a perfect 10 because, as I said, it's one of the most beautiful stories I've seen in years. I left the theater in tears. I cried dozens of times. I think everyone should absolutely see The Wild Robot. And with that being said, thank you for watching this review, and we'll see you next time.